So it's the start of December as I'm recording this, and for a lot of couples, this is an exciting romantic time of year. For others, it's a stressful but important time of family and traditions. But holidays usually bring some kind of stress or tension to a relationship, and that brings up an excellent question. Why do couples fight over the holidays? In this video, I'll break this down into 3 core patterns behind couples' conflict around this time of year, because when you're able to spot the patterns, you can start to break them. And you'll want to stick around as I'll give you some tips on how to do that too. If we've not met before, my name is Oliver and I'm a couples therapist here in Los Angeles. As well as once a week couples therapy, I offer a range of packages to couples to fit your needs and your schedule. For example, if you just want to focus on conflict skills or communication tools, I've got a package for you. If you want to do fewer and longer sessions on a Sunday when you're both free, I can go there. My absolute favorite package for couples this time of year is for couples who want to just feel closer and more connected and maybe bring back that spark of emotional intimacy. All of the packages come with really affordable payment plans of as little as $50 a week over a period of time. So let's talk about the first reason why couples fight more over the holidays. And I'm going to give you an overly complicated visual to show you something very simple that you already know. And that is that holidays are just stressful. So this visual comes from family systems theory. It's one of the ways that I work with couples, and specifically it's the work of Dr. Bowen. He spent decades observing families and couples and noticed that humans carry a certain amount of stress we call chronic anxiety. We all have this as part of being a complicated human being dealing with a hot mess of thoughts and feelings, and in particular dealing with relationships. Now, depending on our family of origin, some of us have more, some of us only have a little bit, but the goal in therapy is to actually get to having less of it. This chronic anxiety isn't the type of anxiety that you feel before an exam. That's acute anxiety. This is background life stress that we generally don't feel, but we all have on a day-to-day basis. It's a creeping anxiety that we all have, but one that also builds up when we go through nodal events, which is a fancy word for life. A new job, getting sick, having a baby, all of this adds more life stress to us. But we don't know how much chronic anxiety we have or how much we can contain until at some point it reaches the limit and then it spills over. And then it shows up in the form of symptoms. So I'm talking physical sickness, depression, emotional withdrawal, as well as anxiety and panic attacks. Now, when we enter a relationship, we're secretly hoping that we can offload some of our stress into our partner and things will be better because we'll have someone to give all of this chronic anxiety to, or some of our chronic anxiety to. But here's the bad news. Couples and families share their chronic anxiety, and at the same time, it's carried around in the individual. So it's like a joint checking account of anxiety. You both have access to the funds, and neither of you are penniless. Unlike having more money, though, having more of this chronic anxiety in your shared checking account of stress is not actually a good thing. Because there's these annoyingly stressful life events that come along and generate more of this chronic anxiety of us. The life event may only directly impact one of you, but because you're in a relationship, these life events add more stress to this pool. And no matter who contributes to it, when it overflows, one of you is going to have the symptoms. So events like getting married or global pandemics, that impacts both of you, and that adds more stress to the chronic anxiety fund. But one of you getting laid off will also add more chronic anxiety to this. And at some point, one of you is going to get wet. So I work with a lot of families, and I actually ran a treatment center for teenagers. So I've seen this play out thousands of times. One of the things I'll do with a family is to put together a timeline of events that have gone on prior to their teen needing help. And without fail, I see life event after life event. Grandpa dying, dad getting sick, mum getting laid off, moving house, starting a new school. Each one of them adds more and more stress until someone in the family, and it's normally always the kid, starts showing symptoms. And that's anxiety, depression, school refusal. It all goes into one person, and this is the one that has the stress. Even though what filled this joint account of anxiety was not happening to the kid, it was happening to family members. So why do couples fight during the holidays? Well, the holidays are just another source of this chronic anxiety. So this time of year, eventually, every relationship has an influx of stress. One of Murray Bowen's biggest observations was that couples really only have about 4 different ways of handling the stress that's in their relationship. One of the ways that we handle all of this stress in the relationship anxiety tank is to get more defensive, to be cranky, to be irritable, and it's what I call the Christmas crankiness and couples conflict pattern. Conflict is just one of the ways that we deal with stress. It's a way of keeping distance between you and all of this tension that exists between you and your partner. And the more distance we have from this vat of chronic anxiety, the better we feel. But that distance can't last because we're in a relationship and we care about the other. So eventually we kiss and make up and get back together again. But then we're in a cycle because this becomes too intolerable. So somebody starts a fight and we get more distance, and then we kiss and make up and come back together again. So what do we do about it? Well, this comes down to 2 really simple things. Let's just acknowledge that your capacity is limited over the holidays. We've got all of this extra tension coming into the relationship. And that has to be acknowledged and maybe give each other some grace. And then I think the second thing is about communication skills, using your I statements, being clear and direct in your communication. Now, if you want a handout of some of my top communication skills for couples and tools for couples communication, download the free 7-day relationship workbook. I'll put the links below. It's 52 pages long and filled with really useful ways to help your relationship, especially over this stressful Christmas period. So Santa's helper and the helpless holiday maker is pattern number 2. And this is a really common situation that I see a lot in my private practice. One partner is Santa's helper. The elves actually do all of the hard work, whereas Santa just has one really busy evening. So one person in this relationship is up until 2 a.m. moving the elf on the shelf, stuffing stockings, baking cookies, while the other sleeps until 9 o'clock. And their major contribution to the holiday is making sure there's enough to drink or taking the trash out. A slightly different version of this same pattern is one partner seeming to be completely clueless, saying they don't know what to buy people. So they just suggest giving everyone an Amazon gift card, which makes the other partner roll their eyes and frantically get ChatGPT to research the best gifts for everyone on the list. There is a name for this pattern, and again, it comes from family systems theory, and it's the second of the 4 ways couples deal with all of this chronic stress in the relationship. It's called over and under functioning. In the first pattern, the Christmas crankiness and couples clashes, we saw that conflict creates some temporary distance for each person in the relationship until they kiss and make up and get closer again. In the Santa's helper and the helpless holiday maker pattern, something different happens. One person gives up their stress entirely to the other person. I explain anxiety as a driving emotion. We have to do something when we're feeling anxious, right? It's that fight, flight, or freeze or fawn response. Each of those is kind of an action. So the underfunctioner who gives up all of their chronic anxiety has less of this drive, and that looks like them assuming less responsibility for whatever happens over the Christmas period. Over time, though, they might start to believe that they're not good enough, that they can't do anything, or adopt a very passive role because they know their partner, who's got more of this drive, will handle everything. So this person is going to be quick to ask for help, even if they're capable of figuring it out themselves. They're going to say they don't know what to buy their sister, but you really know if they tried, they could. Now, the overfunctioner on the surface is highly productive. They are the ones who are going to call me to book the therapy appointment. They organize the social calendar, pay the bills, do the dishes, cook the dinner, buy the gifts, and they get everything done. But the cost of being the one that carries all of the chronic anxiety is periodic burnout, illness, and most importantly, deep resentment. They're also in a relationship where they're in a one-up, one-down position, which isn't really intimacy, it's a power imbalance, and that leads to all kinds of crankiness, irritability, and conflict. All of these things create resentment and emotional distance. So this is the crucial part. The overfunctioner doesn't exist without the underfunctioner and vice versa. So you can't blame one person, because the more the overfunctioner does, the less the underfunctioner does, and the less the underfunctioner does, the more the overfunctioner does. So it's no one's fault here, you're both in it. So the more the overfunctioner takes control, the more the underfunctioner feels dismissed, powerless, or that they just don't have to do it. For this person, it's like their partner doesn't trust them to handle anything, so they stop trying, which confirms what the overfunctioner's deepest fear is: well, if I don't do it, nobody else will. We're in a real loop. Neither person is the villain. They're both reacting to this chronic anxiety in different ways. Again, the holidays are a massive injection of anxiety into the system. And suddenly there's a million things to do, right? Travel, gifts, decorations, cooking, coordinating schedule, managing family dynamics. Whoever was already over-functioning gets absolutely buried, and the underfunctioner, who maybe coasts through the rest of the year, becomes very visible in the lack of participation. And the resentment that has been building since March comes into a full boil around this time of year. So the first step is for partners to recognize that they're caught in this pattern, because as long as the overfunctioner sees themselves as the healthy one and the underfunctioner as the problem, nothing changes. We're still stuck in that loop. If I can get a couple to see that we're in this pattern, the work moves in two different directions. The overfunctioner really has to step back, which means not holding on to all of this anxiety, giving some of it back. And this is really hard for them because their whole system is wired to prevent disaster and act on their anxiety. The underfunctioner, though, has to accept some of this anxiety. They have to stop asking for help when they're capable of figuring things out. They have to get some more of this drive to push themselves through the discomfort of doing things imperfectly and resisting the urge to hand it back to their partner. For the holidays specifically, this might mean sitting down before all of the chaos starts and explicitly dividing who does what and when. You are responsible for buying gifts for these people, the thinking, the buying, the wrapping, maybe even putting it in writing. And then the overfunctioner, though, has to let it go. They can't swoop in to supervise, fix, or micromanage. My third thought on why couples fight during the holidays is called the holiday hierarchy, and it's all to do with boundaries. Most people think of boundaries as individual things, boundaries that go around ourselves. But in family systems work, we also think about boundaries around the couple as a unit. This is like an invisible container that says, we're a team, we're primary to each other, there's this line around us, and also we've got our own chronic anxiety to deal with. Here's the question that the holidays force you to answer. How solid is that boundary? So there's this shared pool of anxiety between you as a couple, but when we go home to our families, there's a whole other set of relationships with other people that we have to consider, and another pool of chronic anxiety that we get to tap into. You're not just tapping into your couple's anxiety pool of chronic anxiety, you're stepping into your family of origins pool too. And that pool has decades of history in it, old dynamics, roles, and old tensions. So there's more people, I'm out of cups, by the way, and more stress and more likely to be an overflow of chronic anxiety into other systems and, more importantly, into other people. So now you're getting flooded from two directions, your families and your couples, and your partner's already adding more chronic anxiety because they're stressed because it's the holidays and they're going to your families, not theirs, and they don't know all of the rules and all of the patterns. So there's a whole bunch of chronic anxiety all around. Plus your family's all stressed out too because they're hosting all of these people and they don't know what to do, and it's the holidays and they've got lists and things to do as well. We're doomed. This system just got really complicated, and there's even more probability of somebody getting overwhelmed and somebody going to show symptoms. And that's most likely to be more conflict, which is going back to the first pattern. So we've got to get a bit clear on boundaries, right? How are you going to stop reacting to your family's anxiety and put down a nice healthy boundary so you're not accepting more of this stuff? So what often happens is the person who grew up in the family who you're visiting will dissolve back into their old roles, their old family system, and have access to more of this chronic anxiety. They start responding to all of the family stuff. But the partner who's just visiting might experience this as abandonment. One minute they had a teammate, the next minute that person has kind of regressed into being someone's child again. They're laughing at inside jokes that the partner doesn't understand. They're deferring to mom. They're not checking in anymore. This partner isn't just uncomfortable, they're kind of alone in a foreign system with no map, and they've just lost their ally. And that's all because the boundary around the couple has gone soft, and the family's anxiety is now flooding into that partner too. They're absorbing stress from a system that they're not even aware of or haven't been part of for years. One of the solutions then is to talk about boundaries. When you walk into your parents' house, you do have a choice. You can be more aware of the family system. You can be more aware of old tendencies and old patterns, and absolutely be more aware of your partner who's left out on their own. You can take responsibility and check in, put a boundary down and say you're going to go for a walk or have a meal together. And I think you should do this before you go. Agree on limits, agree on signals for I need out. And most importantly, the insider, the one whose family we're visiting, needs to sort of put boundaries down with their family and say, no, mum, we're not doing that anymore. Or no, dad, this isn't how it's going to go. The goal isn't to cut anyone off or cause drama. It's just to hold on to your sense of self, to hold on to your boundaries around your primary relationship. So we're not building walls here. We're just like communicating differently. That has been a very messy way of me explaining family systems and what goes on in the holiday period. And again, if you want more tools and skills, go download the free 52-page workbook that I've put together, or you can take the care and intimacy quiz for couples. It will tell you which of the 4 pillars of relationship success you might need to be working on and which ones you're doing well in. And of course, I would love for you to hit subscribe and follow if you like more helpful content about relationships and family dynamics.